Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Psychology for My Kitchen, except that today I'm sitting in my living room. I'm Mrs. Sarah Ryan, and today in AP Psychology, we are continuing with our topic in Unit 12 that is dealing with abnormal psychology and mental illnesses. In our previous videos, we've been talking about anxiety disorders, obsessive compulsive disorders. In this particular video today, we are looking at the trauma-related disorders. The major type of trauma-related disorder is going to be post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. Under previous DSMs, PTSD was listed as another anxiety disorder because there are a lot of anxiety elements that you're going to find in a person who experiences PTSD. However, because the conditions surrounding the symptoms of PTSD are trauma related, that under the DSM-5, it gained its own separate category under trauma related disorders. So, post traumatic stress disorder is going to be a type of mental illness that is a direct result of somebody experiencing something horrifically tragic or traumatic in their life. We often associate PTSD with persons who are in the military. In fact, the history of post traumatic stress disorder actually goes through several different names throughout human history. It's another well documented type of mental illness, again, especially amongst soldiers. It gained a lot of notoriety during World War I when it was referred to as shell shock. In the American Civil War, it was actually referred to as soldier's heart. And then, of course, it becomes known more prevalently as post-traumatic stress disorder during the Vietnam War in the United States. So while, again, we often associate it with combat, it's going to be something that can be experienced by anyone who has any sort of traumatic event. And so while war and military and all of that sort of thing does include significant elements of trauma, any person can experience something that is traumatic. Some of your other common types of experiences that might create PTSD are people who are survivors of natural disasters, as well as rape and sexual assault victims. That's something else. When we look at differences between males and females, females actually have a much higher likelihood of developing symptoms of PTSD after a traumatic experience. However, sorry, just got interrupted by a 5-year-old. While we think about men and women and differences in PTSD, women are actually more susceptible for experiencing the effects of post-traumatic stress disorder, and women are much more likely to experience that because they are victims of rape, sexual assault, and domestic violence, whereas males often more likely are going to develop PTSD in response to traumatic events that might be associated with military experiences. So, in post traumatic stress disorder, you have a person who has experienced something traumatic. As a response to that trauma, there can be a series of clusters of symptoms that that person can experience. For many, it's like intrusive thoughts. So, it's intrusive memories of the event that happened, having flashbacks, fear of things that are associated with that situation. So it could be a particular place, it could be a particular smell, it could be being around a particular person, that you have kind of this negative connotation with, that particular event that was traumatic. There's often really negative changes in mood, concentration, irritability. There's also another cluster of symptoms in which there's some significant detachment. So, like the person almost starts to disassociate from others, where they might feel very disconnected from themselves, like they feel like they're watching themselves go through their life, feeling disconnected from others, feeling as though it's almost like they're faking it through their life, that sort of a thing. In the crash course video that I assign my students with PTSD, Crash Course also talks about how post-traumatic stress disorder is often frequently associated with addiction, and that many people with PTSD find different ways to try to um, soothe themselves through these negative experiences, and often leading themselves to utilizing drugs and alcohol as a way to kind of stem the negative effects that have happened to them because of that traumatic experience. It's also worth noting that some people who experience traumatic events go through something known as post traumatic growth, where they experience something that is horrific. And instead of experiencing the symptoms of PTSD, it's almost as though they've had a significant positive change in their life. They might have a renewed sense of purpose. There might be feelings as though um, they can do better. They want to accomplish more. They want to be more helpful, productive citizens in the world. That it's a much different kind of reaction to the trauma that that person experienced. Um, One of the other issues with treating your trauma related disorders is that for many people, there's no warning, of course, that you might go through something traumatic. And so preparing for, traumatic events and how to deal with traumatic events, that's a really tricky kind of piece because for so many people, you have no idea that trauma is going to strike your life. Whereas for people like in the military, for example, we know now that there's actually significant precautions that can be taken in order to prepare someone for the mental experiences that they're going to have where potentially facing some sort of traumatic event. Um, there is a whole lot of social stigma that is surrounding people who experience PTSD, like many other types of mental illnesses, especially in terms of the military, where some might see it as a sign of weakness when this is somebody who's supposed to be strong and protective, and they think, oh, there's something wrong with my mind. How is it that I couldn't handle this? That's also something interesting to note is that not everybody who experiences a traumatic event is going to go on and develop the symptoms of PTSD. And so this is an area of mental illness that is having a whole lot of research and development into it as we try to gain a better understanding as to why is it that some people develop the symptoms of PTSD and others do not. So until next time, thank you for joining me. I hope you have a great day.